April 15, 1912. The most powerful man on the Titanic is standing alone on a freezing deck. He owns railroads. He owns hotels. He owns entire blocks of Manhattan. But tonight, he cannot buy a seat in a lifeboat. As the Atlantic waits in total silence, John Jacob Astor IV faces something he has never faced before in his life, a rule his money cannot break. Women and children first. In the next 2 hours, the richest passenger aboard the RMS Titanic will watch unimaginable wealth turn into absolute powerlessness. And when the ship finally slips beneath the surface, his fortune will mean nothing. To understand how it came to this, you have to understand the name Astor. Long before the Titanic ever sailed, the Astor fortune had already shaped New York City. The dynasty began with a German immigrant who arrived in America in the late 18th century with almost nothing. No status. No inheritance. Just instinct and patience. While others chased quick profits, he quietly bought land in Manhattan when it was still farmland, cheap, ignored, considered too far north to matter. His strategy was simple: buy, hold, lease, never sell. As New York expanded, that forgotten land became the foundation of an empire. By the time he died, the Astor name was synonymous with wealth. Streets carried it. Buildings carried it. High society revolved around it. The family didn't just live in New York. They owned parts of it. Into that empire, in 1864, John Jacob Astor IV was born. He inherited more than money. He inherited expectation. Most heirs drift through life protected by fortune. Astor was different. He studied at Harvard. He explored science and engineering. He patented inventions. He even wrote a science fiction novel imagining technological futures decades ahead of his time. Wealth surrounded him, but curiosity defined him. He was quiet, analytical, more comfortable with blueprints than ballrooms. In 1911, at 47 years old, he married 18-year-old Madeline Force. The reaction was immediate. Newspapers mocked the age difference. Society whispered. Invitations quietly stopped arriving. For a man raised inside America's most elite circles, the judgment was sharp. But for perhaps the first time in his life, Astor chose something without calculating public approval. He chose love. When Madeline became pregnant, the couple decided to return to America. And in April 1912, they boarded the most talked about ship in the world, the pride of the White Star Line, a floating palace of steel and electric light. The Titanic was more than a vessel. It was a symbol of modern confidence, of engineering triumph, of human control over nature. On April 14, the sea was unusually calm. The water looked like black glass. Just before midnight, the iceberg appeared. The collision did not feel catastrophic. It was a long scrape. A shudder beneath the feet. Ice scattered across the forward deck. Some passengers laughed. Others barely noticed. Astor stepped outside, examined the fragments of ice, then returned to reassure Madeline. There was no visible panic. The ship still glowed with warmth and music. But below deck, cold seawater was already spilling through torn steel compartments. The calculations were swift and unforgiving. The Titanic would sink. Around midnight, lifeboats were uncovered. At first, many passengers hesitated. The ship felt stable. The lights were bright. The band continued playing. It did not look like the end of anything. Then the order spread with clarity. Women and children first. Madeline was 6 months pregnant. Astor wrapped her in a life jacket and escorted her to lifeboat number 4. She was frightened now. The cold air had sharpened. The angle of the deck was slowly, almost imperceptibly, changing. Astor asked if he might accompany his wife, given her condition. The answer was firm. No man until all women and children are aboard. In that moment, the richest man on the ship faced a boundary wealth could not cross. He could have argued. He could have insisted. He could have attempted to leverage influence in the confusion. He did none of those things. Instead, he helped Madeline into the boat. He adjusted her blanket. He reassured her. Witnesses would later say he appeared calm. As the lifeboat began its descent into the darkness, she looked up at him one last time. It was the final moment they would ever share. Minutes passed, and the situation changed from doubt to certainty. The bow sank lower. The stern rose higher. Lifeboats left half full. Panic replaced hesitation. Rockets shot into the sky. Astor was seen helping other passengers, assisting women to boats, freeing deck chairs to serve as flotation devices. Around him stood other men of influence and industry, all facing the same rule, the same cold arithmetic of survival. At 2:20 a.m., the ship broke apart. Steel groaned. Lights flickered. Then darkness. The stern lifted high against the stars before plunging into the Atlantic. The water measured 28 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to steal breath instantly, cold enough to end life within minutes. More than 1,500 people entered that water. From the lifeboats came the sound survivors would never forget, cries in the darkness, voices calling for help, for loved ones, for mercy. Then gradually, one by one, the voices faded. The Atlantic returned to silence. Days later, Astor's body was recovered. In his pockets were cash, gold cufflinks, and a gold watch, small reminders of a vast fortune. Symbols of influence that had carried weight in every room he had ever entered. But not here. Madeline survived. Months later, she gave birth to their son. The Astor name endured. The wealth endured. But something else ended that night. The illusion that money could shield a man from fate. The belief that status could command the sea. Was John Jacob Astor IV a hero? Was he simply obeying the expectations of his era? Did he accept his fate out of duty, or because he understood there was no alternative? We cannot know his final thoughts. But we know his final choice. He stepped back. He let others go first. On a ship that represented the height of human confidence, the richest passenger aboard discovered the one thing money could not buy: time. And when the ocean closed over steel and light and legacy, it did not care who owned Manhattan. It did not care about inheritance. It did not care about power. In the freezing dark of April 15, 1912, John Jacob Astor IV was not an empire. Not a fortune. Not a name carved into buildings. Just another man in the water. That night, the ocean did not test wealth. It tested character. If John Jacob Astor's final choice meant something to you, leave a like and subscribe, because there are more stories where power meets fate and only one survives. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next journey. Remember, when the waters rise, titles disappear. Fortunes disappear. All that remains is who you are. I'll see you in the next story.